I want to give credit to a couple of users who were able to predict what the topic would be. Um, Good job on your part. I really tried to keep it kind of discreet and not really push it out there and leave it for today as something of a surprise. Um, Now, many of you are familiar with Jeremy Meeks, which was a case of a convicted felon whose mugshot went viral and apparently was able to arouse women all across the U.S. And after his release, was able to sign modeling contracts and become a public figure. They say hello to Nerd Bama Rich. So that's all old news, but many of you may not be familiar with his current relationship with this Harris, Chloe Green, who is the daughter of British retail billionaire businessman Sir Philip Green, um, which to think, and I want this want it to be prefaced this way: you have a person who sat in jail, gets out, and based off of this, is able to sign a modeling contract and apparently impregnate some billionaire businessman's daughter. Now, the reason I'm mentioning that goes along with the conjunction of a comment I received back in October by a user who left a very lengthy comment. It was about 10 reasons for why they thought I was unsuccessful. And it was pretty nasty because they were trying to insult me in the process of stating their opinion. But one of the reasons they listed was that I didn't have anything going on, no college degree, no financial balance, which I don't know how someone online would be able to, claim a window into my soul in a place of people in my own life who aren't even familiar with that, but whatever. But think about this. With the claim of nothing going on, um, would that not further be shown by this man who sat in jail for multiple years and just because people thought he looked pretty was able to come out and live some luxurious life? And this was a man who was, treated as a common criminal the year before, arrested during a gang sweep. I don't know why we place such high value on people who don't place any value on themselves. If he really was concerned with his career, he wouldn't have been getting involved in gang activity. It's as simple as that. There really is nothing else to say about it. Maybe his criminal career was advanced, but nonetheless, I wanted to also speak to you on another story, which is that of Brian Solange, who I've generally not felt the need to talk about in most cases. But over the course of the last 2 years, from 2015 to 2017, he was in a relationship with a woman who, African American, is just like him. Um, and she used to be in his videos. They would have these. She was just a very common part of his channel. She even had her own content on there at one point or another, and it was something that outwardly you thought was going well. So in the latter part of last year, he discovered that she was sending messages to another man's profile on social media. Confronted her about this, and then she tried to insult him and say that he had all kind of problems that only now was she complaining about. It was just a very sad turn of events. But this same person had also on a farm, so you didn't even know about it. I'd also like to note that the same individual that cheated on him uh, also had a relationship for 8 years with a guy that physically abused her um, and just really was not what is conventionally considered decent. We think about in decent relationships people that like each other and have a reluctance to actually do something to the other person. But what bothers me about Brian's case is that someone who runs their own business, works every day pretty much, maybe takes a break off during the weekends, but is a very busy man. And, that comment about no degree, no financial balance is not applicable to him. And yet he finds himself struggling with the same thing that I do, a person that this commenter believed has nothing to do from watching a 12-minute video. Okay, JPP writes, they like bad boys. Um, if you go to the recent case of many of these individuals we've seen over the past year, I cannot name to you how many times I have been told this is the reason for why this doesn't work, this is the reason for why that doesn't work. When in reality, much of it has to do with the current dynamic of male and female and the degradation of both genders. And when you have a group of women who, individually but collectively at the same time will say, I don't want anything to do with you romantically because of A, B, C, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, O, P, Q, R, S, T, U, V, W, X, Y, and Z, what are you supposed to do with that person? Now, you'll have those who will tell you, oh, just move on, just don't think about it. Just keep pressing on with your life. But you get year after year of the same excuses. Oh, you live in a different state. Oh, you don't have the same religion as me. Oh, you don't like this hobby that I have. And you're willing to accept, and you make compromise after compromise just so you can get told online, oh, your standards are too high. And you tell them, what are you talking about? I've sat here and tried to appear malleable on what I've wanted for quite some time, and they still won't take you at your word, um, and will sit here and tell you, oh, it's the reason, this is the reason for this, and that's the reason for that. Let me say hello to Envoy and to Nerd Bama Rich and JPP and Wayne Fillmore. Give them a little greeting before I continue on my trifecto. But I bring up Brian's case um, for the purpose of saying to those of you, and you should check out his channel, I definitely would recommend it. I bring up his case for the purpose of stating that there is no one way uh, to live, and there certainly is no one way to be a man, but there appears to only be one way to appeal to a very large demographic of the modern woman that's not over the age of 30 or something. Just to give you a bit of an example of what age realm I'm talking about. And there are people who will get offended by this and will say, this is a generalization, but I want this to be very much in the thought of your mind. If I were a woman and I made a video and I complained that, there are no good men left, um, the comment section would likely be filled with women that were conceding the same idea. So it's all right for them to talk down, and speak in generalizations, which I can believe they're not, entirely convinced of themselves. But it's somehow bad when I do it. I've had people come on this channel who will try to defend people they've never met. I've seen female commenters talk about, you are the role model for bitter men. And I said to myself, whether my comments have, made them feel as if they have someone that understands their frustrations with having a demographic that seems to only focus on groupthink, they came to that way themselves. If you agreed with anything I have to say, you likely saw or experienced heartbreak, or having some woman that you thought was nice or wanted to do something tell you, oh, I don't want this. Nerd Bama Rich says they say that because they are bitter. Otherwise, why would they be here? That's what's strange about it. If all these people are in such great relationships, why are you on this channel? Just a thought for food for thought, rather. In the case of BBS, as men, we're basically supposed to accept being abused. Remember, you're living in a country where the common man and the average man has had his life devalued by those around him, by other men, by a multitude of women. So to have someone go and say, hey, in this video, this is how I feel, this is how upset I am with what's currently going on. What do you expect me to do? Just pretend it's not the case. Shut up about it and talk about other things. which I have no problem doing on some days, but if it's a continuous cycle that doesn't get better no matter how much I ignore it, no matter how much I pretend it's not going on, what am I supposed to do? Sometimes I think people that leave these comments do not recognize that they have caught on to what could be considered a sinking ship. You first put a boat out in the water, and that thing is riding steady, and then as time passes, it slowly drenches down. That's kind of me. I'm not new to uh, approaching or talking to women. I've done so many times in the past. But what I am very inexperienced with is the idea that people can come on here and just assume that I'm not they have some kind of strategy that I've never employed before. I've been on these websites. I've been on uh, all of these apps. I've gone in person in the last since the 28th of last month, or rather February. I've approached more in person than probably at any point in the last 2 years. So I just want to dispel this fiction that somehow if you're watching this, you've now come across some perspective that is more conducive to what's going on than what I am as the person who's going through it. Envoy says, yeah, you're right about it's a sad state of affairs, and a lot of men or even sometimes women get abused for telling their side of the bad experience to the opposite gender, mainly men. Um, but that's why when you look at Me Too and you look at this feminist movement of the current era, I just don't know what they're talking about. I've seen countries where women are treated horribly. It's called Saudi Arabia. It's called Syria. A lot of you guys are, not even talking about that. There are human rights violations going on across the world. And I guarantee you, if any of them could take what's going on in the U.S. over this, they would do it. They'd switch places with you, and you can go and experience real adversity. For all of these, feminists that are complaining about the hells of men, and I just really feel disgusted. You know, um, and I don't know which part of this bothers me more: the fact that you had this guy sitting up in prison for years just so he could, become a model, over the fact that some picture went viral, the fact that you had a guy in the case of Brian who was working a job every day that had this woman sitting at his house and draining his resources and didn't do anything for him. He admitted in that in a video that he would go to work, she'd sit home, watch TV. He asked her at one point to sweep the floor. She couldn't even do that without having an attitude. Yeah, Nerd Bama, that's a very good way of putting it. That strict dictatorship. Sometimes people don't know what they have until it's gone. Um, I really hate the fact that I have so many people who will say, "Oh, it's because you quit. That's why nothing's happening." But then you go out there and you approach and you stick your neck back out there, and you experience a retread of what you already saw and prophesized. And these aren't events that are somehow not foreseeable. You predicted it. You thought, if I go out there, approach this woman, I smile, I start speaking as if I know what I'm talking about. She's still going to maybe have a dialogue, but as far as wanting to see me again, it's a very limited experience. Out of all these ones I approached in person, the only one that actually gave me any type of contact information isn't even from the U.S., which was all the more disturbing to me when I said, wow, that's one, two, three, four, and only one of you is not only willing, but, is, by all conventional terms, a foreigner. Maybe that goes to show you the difference between the Western culture and other countries. And look, my theory, Nerd Bama, and the other two people that are still watching, is that the only way this can be corrected or fixed, or rather, the only way a person can actually think they have a chance, is when the male is approached by the woman. The only time I ever was actually successful at this venture was when a woman approached me. Now, I've since kind of rescinded that view because I've actually had a lot of women that come on here and act like trolls. I want to start talking just to tell you it won't work and then disappear, like Jimmy Hoffa. So I don't necessarily follow the same view. I do think that there's a higher chance of things actually repeating. I know this Meeks character didn't just randomly walk up to this billionaire. She came to him, and you see what's going on with them now. Needs to be discussed that men can get their side of the story. Yeah, Envoy. I'm just tired of feeling as if I can't have an opinion, whereas an entire other group of people can. And look, I understand what you're saying, JPP. Uh, most women don't approach men, but most women I don't approach. And I get told in these comment sections by what are quote unquote female accounts, you're not half bad looking. And when I have one or two send me a private message, I might become convinced of that, just to be tricked into thinking that it could actually happen when they pull out some rationale for why they're backing out before anything even starts. And also, JPP, think to yourself this: if a majority of us have approached repeatedly and have had the same result, what else are we supposed to do? Just keep approaching until somebody finally says yes after years of, playing the lottery game. It gets annoying after a while. I'm not trying to say, don't go. Oh yes, here we go, Envoy. Their excuses, they're afraid to get rejected. Yeah, I've actually seen that in a couple of comment sections and various videos where they've spoken with women about why they don't approach and how they're afraid. But when you say talk to you, do you mean give you hints and or physically open their mouth to talk to you? A little bit of both. Sometimes they give you hints, uh, and other ones will just speak to you. Agree with you. What else can you do besides give up? Well, that's kind of thing. For me at this point, the only reason I even still go out there and even bother is just so I can validate myself further by saying I tried, I went. Um, you know, there's no one can make a claim about, oh, you gave up. I just want there to be validation on my end that I was willing to do whatever it took to see the result. It's kind of like a lot of people who voted for Sanders in that last presidential election that don't like what Trump's doing now, but voted one of those for either him or Hillary during the general election. You did what you thought was right. Everybody else just kept going and did whatever the hell, and now we're in this circumstance. So in the case of many of the people now, I would still advocate for approaching, and on the preface of you don't know who's out there. Um, but after all is said and done, whether you're 30, 50, 70, or 90, you went out, you tried, you extended the hand, and they turned the deaf ear to the voices of peace and reason. So um, I just want those who check this content out to not feel discouraged by those around you who may feel a need to insult you over how things are going. I was never aware of the scope of just ridiculousness on the part of many of these contemporary women until I had people I met that I knew in real life tell me, yeah, I feel the same way just off of seeing my own content. Um, so this is a view that's, yeah, VVS, but you also will feel the validation of knowing that you went out there and it just didn't, you didn't let anything convince you that you couldn't make the attempt to try. Nerd Bama says thank you. We want to stay encouraged as well. Envoy says rejection will usually happen if you say, "Hey, would you go out with me?" and she just says no, but with me, it just feels the vibe. Yeah, I've had the same thing. I told you I was in that the back of that public transportation yesterday, and I asked that woman if she wanted my number, and uh, she said no, and that was a little aggravating because she had greeted me when she came in there, and I thought was going out of her way to actually have some kind of communication beforehand, whatever. Just you read things wrong. People surprise you. I told you a story of how late last year I thought I had found this one woman that was a foreigner or was from another country that I thought was serious about wanting to actually do something long term. So I was like, okay, we can speak, every day for a series of hours. and that turned out to be hocus pocus. But not because of anything I did. Uh, I had her writing comments such as "You are too perfect," and it was just so strange. And a lot of people don't believe me when I say that. I will send you. I will one day screenshot that and just make that the background of the video. I might take that image and just expand it and stick it right behind my head. I wish I was making this up. Yeah, that sucks. Number is always a tricky one because it's really direct. It's often asked if to have social media or even what's up. I felt that's less sneezy than asking for a number. I asked for one of them for the number, um, and she gave me her social media, and I only had one response back from her since this past week. Women sadly are afraid of something they don't understand. Most, if not all, want something typical, and that's not what they you are, and that's not what a lot of us are. Well, if I may say, I think what comes out of their mouth is different from what they're actually doing. You hear people talk about they want their feelings to be heard and their emotions to be felt. Bupkis. Uh, that billionaire woman is only with that man. If that man had looked any other way, he would have sat in jail or been released and gone to being this figure that was not heard of at all. Or if he did get a modeling contract, she still wouldn't have said anything to him. So don't buy this narrative that, the way it works actually, and I'm gonna explain. It's for males and females too. The way it really goes is that a woman or a man will say, "I want someone who treats me well," when in reality they want someone that looks halfway decent or above average decent in their mind, and then they'll adjust their level of tolerance based off of how that person looks. If I looked like Brad Pitt and I was with some, Caucasian woman or some other race group, and I made them maybe breakfast in the morning and then told them to, fix me something in the kitchen, just demanded it. I didn't put my hands on, of course, but just asserted myself and told them to go do something. They probably get annoyed by me doing that, but because they found me so physically attractive, they would just say whatever. It's funny how it's a direct correlation between men who have a lot of money usually get a lot of. I just wish people would just keep it real. Don't patronize us. Yeah. Uh, but I just don't want you to buy the fallacy that you have to act one way. Well, JPP, I just said that. The looks thing kind of goes both ways. I just said that earlier. Have a good day.